Per Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. I will start with Quran recitation with Brother Bakr. Bar Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. نون والقلم وما يسطرون. ما أنت بنعمة ربك بمجنون وإن لك لأجرا غير ممنون وإنك لعلى خلق عظيم فستبصر ويبصرون بأيكم المفتون إن ربك هو أعلم بمن ضل عن سبيله وهو أعلم بالمهتدين فلا تطع المكذبين ودوا لو تدهن فيدهنون ولا تطع كل هلاف مهين هماز مشاء بنميم مناع للخير معتد أثيم عتل بعد ذلك زنيم أن كان ذا مال وبنين إذا تتلى عليه آياتنا قال أساطير الأولين سنسمه على الخرطوم إنا بلوناهم كما بلونا أصحاب الجنة إذ أقسموا ليصرمنها مصبحين ولا يستثنون فطاف عليها طائف من ربك وهم نائمون فأصبحت كالصريم فتنادوا مصبحين أن اغدوا على حرثكم إن كنتم صارمين فانطلقوا وهم يتخافتون ألا يدخلنها اليوم عليكم مسكين وغضوا على حرد قادرين فلما رأوها قالوا إنا لضالون بل نحن محرومون قال أوستهم ألم أقل لكم لولا تسبحون قالوا سبحان ربنا إنا كنا ظالمين صدق الله العلي العظيم.
I would like to invite Sheikh Mushtaba Al-Khoei up because to continue the Q&A session from before. Bar Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق وأعز المرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين، سيما بقية الله روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء. قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. آمنا بالله، صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه. ومنا مؤمنات, brothers and sisters, السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. عظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا بأبي عبد الله الحسين عليه السلام. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your effort, our efforts collectively as we continue to commemorate the masa'ib of Ahlul Bayt salawatullah wa salamu alayhim ajma'een in this month of Muharram, especially the masa'ib of Lady Zainab salamullah alayha, who had to carry the burden and the mission of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and protecting the children and caring for all. It was definitely one of the most difficult tasks that a human being could handle, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed that that person would be Zainab salamullah alayha. For those who try to put some gender above the other, we clearly have examples from the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt that tell us that no gender has superiority over the other, and the differences that exist are part of the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, part of the beauty in His creation, and they are there to each to fulfill the role in the family and in the society, and to complete one another. Hunna libasul lakum wa antum libasul lahun. Quran is very clear about that they are clothing, cover for you, and you are cover for them. They cover your errors, you cover theirs. In other words, they protect you, they help you, and you protect them and help them, each in their own way. Inshallah, we have that understanding. There was a question that came up about the rights of the woman and so on, and this is a clear example that Islam is the most reasonable, fair system that humanity has ever had and will ever have. The only problem is most people have turned away from it, either one way or another, either to one extreme or to the other extreme. And inshallah, we try to be balanced as Muslims, be balanced and follow the teachings of Islam the way Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught it, and the way Ahlul Bayt elaborated and gave examples from themselves, their own lives. This is a clear example. Zainab salamullah alayha is a clear example, as well as obviously the ladies from Ahlul Bayt who played a very significant role, besides obviously the role that they had as in bringing up their family and children and so on, also a role in the society that they played. We'll inshallah continue the questions, some of the questions that remained, or if there are other questions, I just wanted to highlight something very important. And that is regarding the issue or the concept of Islamic law, and needing to learn some of the basic laws that are significant for our life, that we would be dealing with day in, day out, without which we could be falling into error. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Asr, He says that insan by nature is in loss, except for those who, number one, believe. Number two, they do the good deeds. Number three, they remind one another of the right thing to do, bil-haqqi, and they also remind each other to be patient. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. And haqq and sabr, one of the meanings of haqq is salat, our daily salat, and one of the meanings of sabr is in fact fasting. The fasting is also referred to as sabr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, عَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. How do I know that I'm doing salihat? If I don't know the law, I could think that I'm doing salihat and I'm not. I gave an example, some of you may remember, about Amr al-Ma'ruf and Nahi an al-Munkar. It's wajib, yes, but if I somehow try to enjoin good and forbid evil, and I get the opposite effect knowingly, is it still a wajib thing, or does it become problematic? If I know that I'm not going to encourage someone to do good, in fact they're going to be deterred and they'll do the opposite, should I still do Amr al-Ma'ruf? If somebody doesn't know the law, they think, well, I still have to say it. You see what I mean? So they unknowingly they're doing the wrong thing. They're trying to do Amilu Salihat, but they end up doing the opposite. Therefore, it's very, very important that we learn the basic laws of our religion. And it's not contradicting the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all loving, all merciful. He is all loving, He is all merciful, but there are also darajat. I want to highlight this very important point, mu'minina mu'minat. Perhaps some may say, well, if somebody prays in a way that was incorrect, God is merciful, why would He not accept it? If somebody does something thinking it's good and yet it's not good, the intention is good, so why would He not accept it? We're not speaking about punishment or non-acceptance. Here we're speaking of the levels. There is something called khusran, losing. Okay? Here there is something also considered loss, which is an opportunity loss. In economy they speak of it. Meaning what? You could have gotten a higher status and you did not because you didn't learn. You could have gotten a higher status and you did not because you didn't do certain things. So yes, salat, you can pray. Now ulama may say batil, void, you have to repeat. Why? Because you could get the higher status and you're missing out on it. If somebody didn't pray certain prayers and in their youth, or they prayed them wrong and now they realized that they have to make them up. Why do they have to make them up? Connect with God and just love God and He loves you back. He's the merciful. What's the problem? You're missing out on higher statuses. Imam Baqir alayhi salam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. He says, I'm not worried for our followers about entering paradise, being admitted to paradise. I'm not worried about our followers if we're following them. What I want for them is the higher statuses, because one of the things that will happen on the day of judgment and in paradise is that one who sees what they missed out on, they will be in great regret. Yawmul Hasra, it's known as the day of regret. Why? They have that story of, passing by a river at night, and some they took some pebbles from the river. Okay, the king said, take whatever you can from these. Some took a little bit, some took a lot. They didn't know what it is. They didn't, just pebbles from the river. It was night, dark. They just took, and they passed. Later they realized what it was. Some had taken, some took a little bit, some didn't take. They took it lightly. Some took a little bit, some took a lot. Nevertheless, they realized all of these pebbles were gems, very valuable gems. And every one of them was in regret. Why? The one who didn't take wished he did take. The one who took a little wished he took more. Even the one who took a lot wished he took even more. No matter what it is, you still feel. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His levels and khaza'in and rewards are unlimited. On the Day of Judgment, there will be some regret, except obviously for those who are, we call the ma'soomeen, infallible ones, because there's nothing that they missed out on. And this is why when it comes to the ma'soomeen, there's a concept that often they refer to as tarkul awla. Our great scholars, some of them, not all, but some of our great scholars, when it comes to this concept, they say it's not what people commonly understand. It's another discussion that we got into, which basically tarkul awla is the ma'soom does not sin, but they may not do the best. Yes, so that's what tarkul awla means. However, some of our scholars, they say this is not what tarkul awla means. They say that they may not do the best that is normally considered the best for another best. Okay, due to circumstances, they may choose another best. For example, if the most recommended act is to do a certain thing, to recite a certain surah, sometimes they may recite another surah, not because they don't want to do the best, because in that particular situation, the normally best is not the best. The other thing is the best. So even then they are doing the best. They will never do something lower. In any case, that's a discussion that scholars have amongst themselves. We'll leave that alone. Back to ourselves, back to our lives. We need to learn our laws, Islamic law, in order to get higher and better statuses. Just like Imam Hussein alayhi salam, some of you, I don't know if I shared this story. One day, I'll finish with this story, the introduction, and we'll get to the questions, inshallah. One day, Imam Hussein alayhi salam was approached by somebody who had debts. The man said, I have 300,000 debt, okay, in his currency. Now it could be dollars, okay. So the Imam says to him, okay, I will help you. I will ask you 3 questions. If you answer 1, I'll give you 100,000 of your debt. If you answer 2, I'll give you 200,000 of your debt. If you answer all 3 of them, I'll give you all 300,000 of your debt. I'll cover it for you so that you can go and pay off your debt. A lot of money, but Ahlul Bayt didn't money, as long as they have it, it doesn't matter to them. They give it and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives. That's how Imam Hassan alayhi salam, he says, God got me used to giving me anytime I give. I don't want to break the cycle. If we get used to giving, you'll realize that God will replace it and even more. Don't break the cycle. You break it for yourselves. Inshallah, we don't. Imam Hussein alayhi salam said to the man, I'll give you based on the answers. He says, Ya ibn Rasulullah, you are the generous one. Why would you need to ask me questions in order to give me? I knew that you are the most generous man on earth and at this point. The Imam says to him, yes, but I have heard and learned from my grandfather Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and he's teaching, in other words, the Imam is teaching us a lesson. He says, Al-ma'ruf ala qadar al-ma'rifa. Good deeds and good rewards and awarding someone should be based on knowledge. Ala qadar al-ma'rifa. So the Imam asked him simple questions, knowing he knows the answers. He gave him what he wanted, but he wanted to set a rule that the more a person knows, the more you should honor them and reward them. And in other words, in this world, al-ma'ruf ala qadar al-ma'rifa. In the akhirah, what happens? The same. It reflects. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, يَرْفَعُ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ مِنْكُمْ دَرَجَاتٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raises. So the more we learn, the more Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will raise us on the day of judgment, and we have higher statuses. So please do learn the rules of your religion, wudu, tahara, prayers, and so on and so forth. And especially for those who are in business, learn the rules of transactions so that you do not get into non-permissible income, because that makes your income haram, your food haram. Even if you buy halal meat and your income is haram, it is not different. Yeah, wal'ayadu billah, one could be still consuming haram while they're buying halal meat. Yeah, paying more money to buy halal meat. Normally it is, yeah, isn't it? Yeah. Unfortunately, or fortunately, maybe healthier for the Muslims, so they don't have to consume so much meat. It's not healthy. Nevertheless, it is very, very important that we learn the laws so that we ascend. Yeah, we get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and get to become more and more like Ahlul Bayt. We shared numerous times throughout the nights that loving Ahlul Bayt is not possible without knowing them. How do I know them? Through their teachings, their words, their principles. So the more we learn, the more we put into practice, the more we're close to them. Inshallah, with that, we'll resume with the questions and we'll try to cover as many as we can. Yeah.
So we'll start with a questionnaire. So we have the volunteers in the back will hand out pencils and pens. So if you have if you guys have a question, please raise your hand and they will give you the pencil and pen. And the questions will we have an order of, so please do not raise your hand. We have a list of questions that have been asked from beforehand. Thank you.
Awesome.
So the first question is, how can I stay close to the Imam of our time? I feel distant from him.
Ahsantum. Very, very simple. It's act on what you know. Learn more, but first and foremost, act on what you already know. The hadith says, "Man amila bima ya'lam." Whoever acts on what they know, God will teach them what they don't know. The Imams of Ahlul Bayt don't want anything miraculous from us. They don't want people to go crazy doing certain crazy things. All they want from us is simply follow the do's and don'ts. Don't ignore what is makruh. Don't ignore what is mustahab. Very important. One of the people who had the opportunity, one of the scholars who had the opportunity to meet with the Imam, Ajalallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, the Imam told him that you guys have made so many branches. This is makruh, I can still do it. This is mustahab, I don't need to do it. It's either do or don't. Yeah, why would you ignore makruh? Because doing makruh will lead to those who do makruh things are more likely to commit haram. They are the borders, the gates. And those who ignore mustahab things are more likely to ignore wajib acts. Wal-ayadu billah. So, do's and don'ts. Mustahab, do it. Makruh, don't do it. Wajib, obviously we have to do it. Haram, don't do it. Be in that position, in that basically mindset, and inshallah we are getting, in that way we would be getting closer to the Imam of our time, Ajjalallah Ta'ala Farajah.
That's good. So the next question is, this is a personal question. The person said they want to support their child who is a lesbian and a lover of the Ahlul Bayt. How can she best support her and guide her to the right path? Because that's a very pressing issue in today's day and age.
Ahsant, ahsant. So we do have some young ones, but I'll try to answer to the best of my ability given the circumstances. We should have had some age thing, but it's okay, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So this gender issue, in fact, today I received some message about it and shared it with some scholars, and it was a cause of sad laughter, if you know what I mean. There's a saying in Arabic, it says the worst calamity is one that makes you laugh. شر البلية ما يضحك. In fact, it's not surprising, because at the time of Nabiullah Ibrahim ala nabina wa alayhi salam, when the angels came to him to speak about the people of Lut, as soon as the angels mentioned the people of Lut, his wife, Sarah, she laughed. When she heard the name, she laughed, because it is a cause of laughter, but sad laughter. You know, how sad could human beings get, or how far would they go when they are following desires? The issue of same gender relationships is obviously a sin, and it's like many other things that are considered sins in Islam. One who has those tendencies has to fight them, just like many might have temptations to other sins. You know, looking at haram on a TV, isn't it a sin? It's a sin. Is it tempting? For some it might be. You know, what should they do? They should fight that temptation. Eating certain things that might be haram, it's a temptation. Smells good. Sometimes you pass by certain places of food and it smells so good. And someone asked me once, they said, how come, the non-halal smells better? They didn't say the taste, but we'll leave it there. It's because زَيَّنَ لَهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ أَعْمَالَهُم. Shaitan beautifies anything that's not halal, okay? Somebody said once to me, why is it that everything that's haram is so much more fun? Said, because shaitan has taken over your mind. You see it that way. Otherwise, awliyaullah, they see the most pleasurable things, something like salat. If they can get to go to sujood, one of the statements of one of our scholars, he says one of the most pleasurable things is to be blessed to have the opportunity to pray on time. Sometimes things happen in life and, you just get dragged from one thing to another and you try to pray on time, but it doesn't happen. He says one of the most beautiful blessings is to be able to pray on time. You want more than that? If you were a neighbor of a masjid, for example, and you had the opportunity to pray jama'ah, those of you who are able to make jama'ah even once a week, don't miss out on it. These are the most pleasurable things. But people don't see it. People see other things as pleasurable. What do we do with those pleasurable things that are haram? We have to fight them. We have to fight those temptations. Just because somebody has certain temptations to certain sins doesn't mean we need to exclude them. Out. You're not allowed in the community, you're not allowed in the center, you're not allowed this, that, and that is not the Islamic way. Definitely not the Islamic way. They have those temptations. It is a sinful temptation. Many others have other sinful temptations. Now the issue is when they announce it, Islamically, in a Muslim society, they can't announce it. In this society, they're basically given all the support, and in fact they're pushed to announce it. Even if they think they may have those tendencies, they make them believe that they have them. And I've seen that. They make them believe, and so they... Now, in such a society, you cannot exclude them. We need to be inclusive. We need to be not promoting and accepting, and I'm not suggesting that at all. Don't get me wrong. But you cannot reject them, reject their action, or tell them that those temptations, as a parent, tell them, I don't want to know about it. Fight your temptation, I don't want to know about it. That would be your support. Some parents told me, should I kick them out? No, of course not. You still have the responsibility as a parent and as a human being. So we need to be more diplomatic on how we deal with it, rather than become so negative about it. And unfortunately, a lot of times parents, when they have this issue, they become too emotional. And with emotions, we cannot solve problems. We need to solve them with our mind, with reflection, with intellect, and perhaps get others involved, get some help from perhaps scholars, from other social workers in the community and the society, to help them, and never reject them, reject the action, do not accept it for sure, but not rejecting them. I hope that suffices.
That's good.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
This is another question. It's another personable question. In regards of divorce, if one side refuses to pay meher, how should how should a wife go about this situation? Should she go a legal way, or is there another way to go about this?
أحسن. Very specific issues, but we'll try. If the man refuses to pay the mahar and they're capable of paying it, and one can get it through other means that are not necessarily outrageous, then they can. If it means they go through some arbitration or something, they can to get what is rightfully theirs. But obviously, they need to be mindful that it should be about what is rightfully theirs, not necessarily what the civil law says and what the court says. And it should be based on what is rightfully theirs. Anything that you earn that is not yours, it will not be blessed, it will not last, and it will not yield good fruits. You know, halal income, halal money, blessed money, you enjoy it, you enjoy whatever you consume through it, you get good children through it. Anything that's not yours, it does not give you those positive things, so we need to be mindful of that. And at the same time, if, let's say for instance, one is unable to give it, don't put them in hardship. And if they're refusing yet they're able, and you're not able to get it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would suffice you. You don't need to worry. These things in life come and go. Not saying give up on your rights, but if it becomes a cause of further hardship and problems, sometimes fighting about things becomes in itself a bigger problem. You know, as much as we think, okay, I'm going to gain something financially, but that fight is not worth it. You know, when you go through that, it is daunting. It kills your spirits. It kills you as, you know, as a thriving, happy human being. So sometimes it's not worth it. You leave it between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It might be an easier route. I'm not saying you have to give up on your rights, but sometimes that might be the better route. Wallahu a'lam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
This is a little more general. The question is, how are we so sure Shiism is the right path, since we are the large minority as a Muslim population?
Very good point, Ahsan. So being a minority, should it make us doubt our faith? According to the Holy Quran, minority or majority are mostly wrong. Quran says, not me. You know, أكثر الناس لا يعلمون لا يعقلون. So if we go by majority is not necessarily right, according to the Holy Quran. There is no significance about majority. Yes, within the good, there is, you know, we even in fiqh, we have Shia, which is something that spreads, people know it, it should give you some sort of a, you know, positive feeling and vibe. that okay, that everybody's saying this scholar is the most knowledgeable, he must be most knowledgeable. Is it everybody all together or everybody? They know, they say شياع مفيد للعلم. It is spreading amongst the good people, amongst the religious people, amongst the muttaqeen, God-weary people, amongst the followers of Ahlul Bayt salawatullah wa salamu alayhim. For us, this is a condition. It has to be that kind of Shia that we can take some points from. Otherwise, majority is not, basically, it's not a factor that we need to worry about. Or being a minority is not a factor that we need to doubt ourselves because of. One has to, and this is something since this was brought up, I really want to stress for mu'mineen and mu'minat, one has to take their faith through their own research. Matters of faith are not matters to follow. When we determine that we are in the correct path, and we determine that in this path this scholar has done his research and he knows what he's talking about, therefore I follow his verdicts in my day-to-day life transactions about business, prayers, whatever it is, because I don't have the time to go and do all that research. So he's doing it, I follow. That's when I determined that this school is correct to start with. But to determine that the school is correct, the school of Ahlul Bayt, that is a matter of aql. That is something that one has to research, understand, fully be convinced, and therefore follow that path. Not be a blind follower. In the school of Ahlul Bayt, we are always encouraged to use our intellect. In the school of Ahlul Bayt, we are never told you just have to believe. You know, in some schools, they tell you this doesn't make any sense. You just gotta believe. But these people did many atrocities. They killed one another. They're all Sahaba. Leave it alone. You just have to. So in other schools we have this nature of or this approach of silencing questions and intellect. Just as you know, in Christianity, when you start questioning Trinity in many regards, which is very easy to question, they say you gotta believe. Yeah, this is literally what they would tell you. You just have to believe. Similarly, in other schools, when they come to a dead-end road, they'll tell you just gotta believe it. This is from the book that is, according to some of them, higher than Quran. It explains the Quran, Bukhari and other books. In the school of Ahlul Bayt, we don't have that. Use your intellect, and we can, through our intellect, we can establish through Quran and aql, we can establish the authenticity, the truthfulness of the school of Ahlul Bayt. And if you have not done so, please do it. If you need to research about it, please do so. Don't be a blind follower. I hope that's, yeah.
Before we begin,
Allah
another
Akbar.
question. If you guys don't want to write it down, there's also a number you guys can text. The number is 631-768-2767. Again, 631-768-2767. Please text this number, or we'll give you a pen and pencil to write down. We'll move on to the next question. Sorry. Sorry.
No problem.
Yes.
The phone number.
631 768 2767. 631 768 2767.
So,
Okay, we'll move on to the next question. So this is again on the Ahl Bayt al-Islam. If the Ahl Bayt are ma'soom, why do they ask for forgiveness in their du'as, and why is it very seen that they're focused on forgiveness of themselves when they're infallible?
Ahsan. So there are two answers to this question. If the Ahlul Bayt, or since, I would say that I would reword the question, since the Ahlul Bayt are ma'soom, why do they ask for forgiveness in their dua and very frequently? There are two aspects. Number one, they are teaching us. Ahlul Bayt salawatullah wa salamu alayhim, they're role models. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, in the messenger of God, you have the best role model, best example. Uswatun hasana. You have the best, most beautiful example in Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and Ahlul Bayt. So they teach us. How are they going to teach us to do istighfar? They teach us in their dua, they teach us in their qunut, and so on and so forth. That is one thing. The other thing which is also true about some of the ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He says to His messenger that you need to seek forgiveness. وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لِذَنْبِكَ. What is it referring to? The Imams of Ahlul Bayt responded to that, and they said that is referring to the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks at the sins of the ummah of Rasulullah as His. Not that He's going to be punished for them. But on the Day of Judgment, we all know two books, or inshallah we do, there are two types of judgments, individual and group. Yeah? And the group also will be judged collectively. So the individual as an individual and the group. And on the Day of Judgment, Quran says, يَوْمَ يُدْعَى كُلَّ أُنَاسٍ بِإِمَامِهِمْ. Every group of people with their leader. Now our leader is Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, or the Imam of our time, Ajjalullah ta'ala farajahu sharif. Yeah? They are responsible for us. Therefore, they seek forgiveness for us. وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لِذَنْبِكَ. In that ayah is referring to that. Referring to the fact that they're looking at us. They are, in fact, Imam Hassan alayhi salam gives that example from his mother Fatima Zahra salamullah alayha. Many of you are familiar with that story. And that statement that she made in the end, she said in the end, from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, because the Imam says, I witnessed my mother staying up all night, or a lot of the hours of the night, and she was praying. So he would get up and see her standing in prayers. Get up and see her standing in prayers. Witnessed her praying and praying. And he heard her asking God for forgiveness and blessings for all the people around. She named neighbors, she named certain people, she named and named and named. And then he said to her, my dear mother, you prayed for everybody and you didn't pray for yourself. And the famous statement was that I heard from my father Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, al-jar thumma ad-dar. You start with the neighbor and then your own home. In other words, she would care for others and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would grant her whatever she asked for and more. In other words, raised her status. So when they are doing istighfar, they are doing istighfar for their companions. They are doing istighfar for their lovers. They are doing istighfar for their followers, for you and I. And through their istighfar, we are getting blessings and blessed to be forgiven, blessed to be guided. That's very, very significant. There's a very beautiful poem in Farsi. The poet says, that's Fatima Zahra salamullah alayha. She used to pray nights so you and I can be guided and follow her. So she's praying at night so you and I today can be amongst the forgiven ones who deserve to be guided to Ahlul Bayt salawatullah wa salamu alayhim. I hope that suffices for that one, inshallah.
The next question, it's if you can't come to love or respect yourself as much as others do to you, what are some ways to change that about yourself or treat yourself in a better state than you believe yourself to do so?
Ahsan. So one of the problems that, in fact, in today's world it's becoming more prevalent and more of an issue is depression and people having problems with self-esteem and confidence and so on. A lot of this, and this is why psychologists have introduced concepts or things like affirmations and so on. I shared with mu'minina mu'minat a reminder: best affirmations are connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not that I am, but God has made me, God has blessed me, God has favored me, God loves me. So the more we understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His mercy and His wisdom and His creation, then every one of us should realize that they have a role to play in life. God didn't create us for no reason. And so God created me, therefore I am important. God put me in today's world in the place that I am. God put you, every one of you who lives here in New York. Why did He decide for you to be in New York? He decreed somehow in your life that you will end up being in New York. There is a reason for that. Look at that, look for your purpose in life and why. The questions I asked that are from Imam Ali alayhi salam: where from, where to, and where in. Where from? We came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're honored. God has created us. Our master is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rabbuna Allah. Allahu waliyul ladina amanu. So you should feel empowered with that. You should feel significant with that you are significant. And then the continuation. This world is temporary. There is a hereafter. That also helps. Because a lot of the times when you feel like things have not been fair to you, realize that God has put a better place for you. When the Prophet was feeling down, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminded him, وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى. These ayat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling him, akhirah is better. So it is for any of us. When people were denying him, things were difficult for him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him some strength through those ayat. Surah Al-Inshirah and Surah Al-Adha. وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى. Those two surahs and Surah Al-Inshirah, أَلَمْ نَشْرَحْ لَكَ صَدْرَكَ, were there to give some boost to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And one of them is through reminder of akhirah. And then your role in life. If you focus on your role in life and start figure it out, try and figure it out and start playing your role in life, then you will not be feeling down, inshallah.
Just to go on a little bit, another question based on the same issue.
Yeah.
How do you differentiate self-respect with ego? How do you gauge the two?
Ahsan. There's a beautiful dua from Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, which I really encourage mu'mineen and mu'minat to read this dua with reflection. Don't just read for the sake of reading it. Don't just do a checklist reading. Read this dua with the purpose of reflecting and understanding. The dua, very famous dua, Makarim al-Akhlaq. Many of you are familiar with it. Perhaps we need to be more familiar with what the teachings, because each line in this dua is a field to be discussed and elaborated on. One of them, the Imam says, وَلَا تَرْفَعْنِي فِي النَّاسِ دَرَجَةً إِلَّا وَحَطَتَّنِي عِنْدَ نَفْسِي مِثْلَهَا. Ya Allah, whatever steps or levels you raise me in the eyes of the people, take me down in my own eyes, lower me in my own eyes. So the balance should be there. A mu'min should keep their honor and not demand it in that sense, but do not accept humiliation either. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he says, hayhat minna dhilla. We do not accept humiliation. So a believer does not accept humiliation. They don't need to humiliate themselves. Be humble, but don't humiliate yourself and don't accept that. At the same time, when you see that people are respecting you, the more you are with God, people will respect you and you will go higher. This is automatic. whoever wants, honor and respect and might, izzah, it is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَإِنَّ الْعِزَّةَ لِلَّهِ جَمِيعًا. You are with God, you'll automatically go up. Now as you go up, people are respecting you. What do? Remind yourself that I am nothing without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is where I think the buffer is there when we connect everything to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alhamdulillah. People are praising you. Alhamdulillah. It belongs to God. I'm nothing. I don't have anything from me. Somebody says, oh, you recited nice. It's not me. God gave it to me. Yeah? You have this. God gave it to me. If you think it, God gave it to you. Keep yourself in check with that. With always remembering, I'm nothing without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I have absolutely nothing.
So the next question, it's a little more personable to this person, but if they have a child who is in a haram relationship, how should they go about it as a parent, and how should they advise their child? Yeah.
Hassan. This issue is very personal to me as well, in a sense. And what I mean by that is, it is something that I am very passionate about. Why is the son or daughter or the child, why are they in a haram relationship in the first place? Why were they not married off early? This is a problem in our society, in our communities. It is a serious problem. In the old days, it was the norm. They get to the age of puberty, shortly afterwards they're engaged. Yeah? And then they have their fiancé from both parties to share some of those things that they like to share with the opposite gender. And shortly afterwards, when they're ready and they prepare some circumstances, very simple, very humble, a room and whatever it needs, and next thing they're married. Nowadays they have to graduate university and they have to establish themselves, get a career, get a job, do this, do that. And in the meantime, what? They're not human beings. All of a sudden we made robots? No, we did not. They don't see what's going on around them in the society. Yes, they do. They see it very well. They see it as soon as they enter high school. Yeah? In fact, sometimes in, I don't know, probably the middle school, you call it here? Secondary or middle school, yeah? Yeah. They see it. So what do? They're aliens. They don't belong to a human family. They have some different make or something. No. Our children have needs just like everybody else. The sooner we take care of their needs, the sooner. It's just like I tell people, comes time for water and drink. If your son or daughter is hungry or thirsty, what do? Don't you go out of your way to quench their thirst and give them the food that they need? Now they have some other needs and you're turning a blind eye, like the ostrich that puts its head in the sand. I don't see the danger. Well, the danger is there. And if you don't do something about it, it's not going to go away. It's going to grow bigger. It's going to become a serious problem. Now, if it did happen and it got to that point, it needs to be dealt with. Again, get help from perhaps counselors, scholars, based on the situation. I'm not sure what the situation is. It may be a situation that could be resolved with simply getting them married. It may be a situation that needs other solutions. So that is very specific. That would need a solution, but don't go crazy about it. Don't do same as the other question regarding the other issue. Do not start with rejecting and going crazy about things. Rather, rationalize, think properly, and deal with it appropriately to help them, guide them. They get to the age, I often tell people, and I don't want to keep you much longer on this one, but I said I'm very passionate about this. I am. When children are just born, do they know how to deal with their own limbs, hands and feet? Does a just born child know how to use their hands and feet? Okay. It's a capability that God gave them and they don't know how to use. God gave them the tongue. Do they know how to use it? They don't know. Okay? So slowly, slowly you teach them. Yeah? Comes to other needs and capabilities, we don't know anything about it. That's not how it works. Yeah? They also need to be taught, and if they make mistakes, they need to be corrected and brought back to the, straight path, to the Sirat al-Mustaqim, inshallah. And we hold their hands. When they become teenagers, the hadith says, keep them very close to you. Alzimuhum anfusakum. Keep them very close to you. You need to keep them close, have an open relationship, talk to them about their problems, and if they're facing those issues, if you haven't realized it early enough, realize it and solve their problems. Help them deal with their capabilities and abilities that God gave them. Inshallah, that suffices.
Before we ask another question, there are a bunch of distractions going on, so please quiet down. People are trying to listen. They've asked these questions for an answer from a scholar. Please quiet down. So we'll move on to the next question.
Ahsan.
The next question is, this one is, it's more related to conversion. This is asked quite a few times. A lot of people have asked, they have Christian or Jewish friends or anyone who's not Shia Islam. How do we advocate Islam, and especially Shia Islam, versus, what are tips for someone to get them to Shia Islam rather than going
Ahsan.
toward Sunni Islam?
Ahsan. So the first thing is the action. Actions speak louder than words. This is the reality. The first thing is be ornaments. كونوا لنا زينا ولا تكونوا علينا شينا. Be ornaments to Ahlul Bayt. Salawatullah wa salamu alayhim ajma'in. Let them see the most honest person in you. Let them see the most honorable person, the most ethical person, one who does not cheat, one who does not lie, one who does not backbite. When they're backbiting, see, these things are very common in all humanity. Okay, basic things that are common in all of human beings. And when they see that somebody is not willing to slander and backbite and would stop others from doing so, and they see those ethics and morals in you, they respect you, then they are drawn to you automatically. The Imams say when they see goodness from you, and then they say, this is Shi'i فَإِنَّ ذَلِكَ يَسُرُّنِي. They will ask you, what faith do you belong to? There was an example of somebody who was guiding a friend to be dutiful to her mother. Okay, so the friend was not on good terms with her mother and was not Muslim. So this person was sharing with them a hadith, ayat and a hadith about the significance of respecting mothers. Not telling her to become a Muslim, no, just respect your mother. And this is what and the person was telling her, we have traditions. Didn't necessarily say hadith from the Prophet. We have traditions saying, be dutiful to your mother. She carried you where nobody carries anyone. She did this for you. She did that for you. Reminded her, constantly was doing that. Eventually, the mother, when they reconciled, the mother and the daughter, the mother was so drawn to this friend, the mother became Muslim and she made her daughter Muslim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Because the mother asked, who you changed, something changed. She said, yeah, my friend kept on talking to me and she shared all these things with me, these messages. The mother was so drawn to the beauty of Islam, the beauty of the words of Ahlul Bayt. The Imams of Ahlul Bayt said, share our words with them. Share the words of the Ma'sumin with them, with the people around you. لو علم الناس, if people knew the beauty of our words, they would follow us. The hadith from the Imams of Ahlul Bayt. So share the beautiful words of Ahlul Bayt. Don't use I would not suggest a direct approach. Some people go directly, you have to, if you don't. I have a friend, an acquaintance, let's say, who goes up to people and, if you don't become Muslim, you're going to hell. I'm trying to help you. This is his approach. And I keep telling him this is not the way. And I don't think it's ever worked. Maybe it will someday, sometime with somebody, but that's not the best approach. The best approach is to show them with your own akhlaq a real Muslim and a real follower of Ahlul Bayt, and you use any opportunity to share the words of Ahlul Bayt salawatullah wa salamu alayhim ajma'in. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala.
Again, if you guys want to have your own personal conversations, you guys can step out and then come back in as soon as yours are done. Please, people are trying to listen. This is to everyone. Sorry. It's for the next question. This is a little more specific. So this person asks, she's a practicing psychotherapist. How is a sin judged? How is a particular action judged to be a sin based on a mental health issue, for example, anger issues, hypersexuality, and so on?
Ahsan, very good point. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created aql, intellect, He praised it. He said, this is the best in my creation. And through this I will reward, and through this I will punish. Reward and punishment is based on aql. Who knows what the level of understanding of that individual? We don't know. Now in courts here, they go to the best of their ability. They do some tests for the person. If somebody commits a crime, they do some tests. They say, okay, he may be suffering from some, mental illness. Oftentimes that's a way of getting them out of trouble. Sometimes, let's say not often, but sometimes it might be a way of getting them. And a lot of the times lawyers use that. That is what people can play in this world, but nobody can play it against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He knows everything about everything, what goes in your mind, what goes in your heart, and so on. He knows what a person is exposed to. He knows where their weaknesses are, where the strength is. The judgment is based on their aql. Whatever they understand and they do knowingly full well, knowing that this is wrong, then obviously that would lead to them regretting it. And if they don't know, then they don't. If they don't know any better, they don't understand. They have their certain levels of sanity. That's not obviously they won't be judged or punished on that. Inshallah, that suffices.
The next question is this is more historical. They asked, why was Imam Sajjad not attacked at Karbala? Why was he not? Why was he not attacked?
Ahsan, yeah. In fact, this is part of the Majlis tonight. But the Imam was attacked, and twice Lady Zainab Salamullah alayha had to come to the rescue, in the sense that she used obviously it's a miracle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When God wants something to happen, it will happen. The means will work towards it. Like there are certain miracles, I will share a couple of them inshallah tonight, that were not natural. It couldn't happen in a natural way. One of them is the fact that the angry, crazy army of Umar ibn Sa'd and Shimr, the army of Ibn Ziyad, La'natullah alayhim, for them to spare Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam. Yes, he was sick, yes, he was in the tent, yes, he was escaping the fires and so on, but for them to spare him, it was a miracle of God. And obviously it was the catalyst of that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the catalyst in some cases the stick, the staff of Musa alayhi salam was the catalyst of a miracle, or many miracles. The catalyst of the miracle on that day was Lady Zainab Salamullah alayha. She was the cause where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through her saved the life of Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam. Otherwise they would not spare him, and they did try in Karbala and in the castle of Ibn Ziyad la'natullah alayh.
Okay. Just the next question is, you answered a little bit before, but this is, I guess, more prevalent now. What is the true meaning of Shi'ism? how do we differentiate true Shiism with extreme Shiism, and as well as liberal Shiism that is like moving on in today's day and age?
Ahsant, yeah. Yeah, so in every group, there are extremes, and we need to stay on the path of Ahlul Bayt, which is the middle path. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes that in the Holy Quran, and the Imams of Ahlul Bayt say, we are the ummatan wasata. وكذلك جعلناكم أمة وسطا لتكونوا شهداء على الناس ويكون الرسول عليكم شهيدا. In that ayah, the Imams of Ahlul Bayt describe themselves as being the ummatan wasata, the example for people, so that we learn the middle path. Unfortunately, yet, despite that, we still have within those who adhere, or they are considered followers of Ahlul Bayt, Shia of Ahlul Bayt, we have some extremes, and we always need to stay on the middle path. Back to the first question, or the comment I made from the previous question about aql. Let aql be the judge. Your intellect, on the day of judgment, you will be asked about what you understand, your intellect, how you understood things. Don't go emotional, and don't become a blind follower. Just because I belong to this party, ethnic group, this family, whatever it is, and they do this, so we do it. We've done this all our lives. This is a common thing people say, we've done this all our lives, therefore we're going to continue doing it. All of these things are no justification. The way we need to assess things is with our aql. What seems to be an extreme, what comes, see, whatever your mind doubts, if you ignore, you will be questioned about. If you know and you don't do it right, obviously, you will regret it. And if you ignore your doubts, you feel something's odd about this. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us a beautiful mind. Aql is beautiful. Okay, it can assess things. So when something goes towards an extreme, if your aql tells you this is an extreme, then, or it seems bored. In the last few days, I've had many youth come to me about certain things that are very cultural, very traditional, but they feel a little bit uncomfortable about them. And that is because their aql is working well. It's a beautiful thing that's happening. Your intellect is working well. Assess it. Don't reject immediately, and don't accept blindly. Don't reject immediately, and don't accept blindly. Research, and whatever you find to be the most balanced path, follow it. Hopefully that.
That's a great answer, but I guess just to ask for a little more explanation, on the extremes, or I guess this question is more, I guess, based off the liberal Shiism that is sweeping up in the West. So how do we look at that, and how do we differentiate ourselves from
Ahsan. One thing we need to be very, very careful about is the distancing ourselves from our great scholars and teachers. That would lead to problems. Imam Ali alayhi salam in a hadith, he says, do not become a lone sheep because you become the target of the wolf. If you're the one, as the herd is together, one that goes alone becomes a target. It's a weaker one. They surround. So, meaning what? We have our great scholars that have done their research, and they've continued, and they've inherited from one another for centuries. If somebody comes and opposes, has an opinion against that should automatically ring an alarm bell. You should automatically feel something's odd there. I'm not saying that we need to reject it immediately, but I'm saying we need to research, and within the school and within the scholars, yes, majority is not significant when it comes to people who have not found their way. But now within the school of Ahlul Bayt, you have all these scholars who have inherited and they've done research, one after the other, generation after the other, and one wants to come and deviate from that and give a different verdict and opinion, it sounds odd. Automatically one has to question, did they not ever come across what he is sharing, these arguments? Did he, this individual that's bringing up these arguments, did he just come up with them and they never ever came across it, didn't cross their minds? Or are we now accusing them of simply lying and deceiving the people? Why? Why would they do that? When they live the most humble lifestyles, when they live the most simple lifestyles, when they have personally, individually, if you go and see any of our maraja, any of our great scholars, you'll find that they are living the most humble, simple lifestyles that perhaps none of us here are able to live like that. And I mean that. I tried it with my family. Perhaps if I was single, I would have been able to. But with my family, we couldn't. In circumstances that, and it's every part of the world is available to them. If it was about simply searching for their convenience and comfort, every part of the world is available to them. Yet, they are, doing their best to give the ummah answers and strength and power. If these individuals who are now, if you want to call them the more liberal, I don't know, whatever you want to call them, I don't particularly think the term liberal applies to them. There's a little, but we'll just use that for now. If these individuals have anything to say, they learnt it from them. That's the sad reality. If they have anything that has any value in it, they learnt from these great scholars and from the seminaries that they are now, many of them are attacking. So when you see that, there's obviously a problem there when there's such opposing opinions and views. And the common argument that is used is that, okay, these people are in that part of the world, they don't know what we're going through. This is something I've heard very frequently. And very, very, very erroneous statement. Why do I say that? It's because, number one, they are constantly asking those who are coming from different parts of the world about their concerns and issues and their problems. And through that, they're learning about us so much that, my own brother, when he was spending time, he's based in France, he was sharing with me, he was spending time with one of our great maraja in Najaf, and he was surprised how much he knew and the questions that he was asked about very recent issues that were going on in Europe and specifically in France. And he was asking him specifics about really what people are going through and so on. On the other hand, if somebody was to be here, does it mean that they're going to see everything that people are facing? No, they're going to hear it as well. Believe it or not. Most of the things I know are things I hear from people. Why? I've been here in New York for almost 2 weeks now. Yeah? What have I seen from New York? What do you think? Yeah. So it's not like they're going to go to the beach and see what people go through on the beach and then come and say, okay, now we changed our minds. We have to give people some leeway. We've been strict on people. They're going to share exactly what I share with them, exactly what we share with them. Okay, so somebody living in some parts of the West doesn't have an upper hand because they meet people and ask people. The same thing our great scholars are going through. That argument is completely null and void. We could go on and on about this, but I think that suffices for now.
So the next question is more, again, back to historical. This person asks, why didn't Bibi Zainab's, salamu alayha, husband go to Karbala?
So there are a few things that not everybody went with Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and perhaps the Imam himself did not necessarily want absolutely everybody to go. Obviously, the ones who did go have a very special status, but at the same time, the ones who could not make it, if they were excused for a good reason, then it doesn't take down anything away from their status and value. For example, one of the great people who set up the ziyarah of Arba'in, you know, the ziyarah of Arba'in that everybody goes to, the first person who actually went there and walked, he came to the Furat, he did the ghusl, and then he went for ziyarah, and we all now are following on Arba'in, we do ziyarah, is Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari. Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari was not in Karbala. Why was he not in Karbala? Why did he not fight with Imam Hussein alayhi salam? He was old. By then he had lost his eyesight. He was in fact directed by Atiyah, one of the other companions, who directed him there, helped him get there. And many in Medina could not make it. Some were the brothers of the Imam salawatullah wasalamu alayhi, and one of them, the brother-in-law, the Abdullah ibn Ja'far, who was he gave his children. You know, he could have said, okay, Sayyidah Zainab wants to go with her brother, but my children, I want them to stay with me. But and this is naturally a man growing older. He wants his young men, now strong men, to be with him. He gave them. He knew that they're going to be martyred, and he gave them. He sent them. So he participated essentially in Karbala, but there were obviously reasons why he could not. Some say he was also unwell, to the point that his eyesight was not well, and so on. Allahu alam what the reasons are, but never accused of lacking in his loyalty for Imam Hussein alayhi salam.
This one is more of a, I guess, a fiqh question or jurisprudential question. It's about step siblings and adopted parents. What exactly is the mahram relationships if a stepchild or adopted child is taken?
When does Islam accept adopting? Islam encourages it, not just accepts it, encourages it. We have examples from Ahlul Bayt salawatullah wa salamu alayhim. In fact, especially for orphans, it's so important not just to provide for them food and some clothing, but also give them that loving home, parent, father or mother environment, and so on. So Islam encourages that. The Prophet ﷺ raised orphans. He raised all the famous companion who's mentioned by name in the Quran is Zayd ibn Haritha. He was raised by Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Imam Ali alayhi salam raised the Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr, famous ones. They raised others as well. So there were orphans or children that they adopted and raised and cared for. The issue is Islam does not accept that by adoption some laws change with regards to the adopted child to the extent that, for instance, he becomes really a son or daughter, therefore marriages become not allowed, and so on. The Prophet ﷺ was made by God. God made him marry his adopted son's ex-wife. Okay, Zainab, who was related to the Prophet, was married to Zayd. Her parents actually brought her as a gift to the Prophet, hoping that he would marry her. Instead, he married her off to Zayd, his adopted son. And then, eventually, Zayd divorced her. They could not make it together. Both are good, great individuals. Zayd, a great companion of the Prophet ﷺ, raised by the Prophet, and Zainab became eventually one of the wives of the Prophet ﷺ. Both good, but didn't work. So it's not always, somebody, we have to look at faults. Whose fault? They weren't matching. So they got divorced. When they did get divorced, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, زَوَّجْنَاكَهَا, we made you marry her. Okay, why? Exactly for this reason. God wanted to nullify a rule in Jahiliyyah. In Jahiliyyah, they used to treat the adopted son as their own children, and they would call them with their own names. Like they would say, for instance, Zayd ibn who, they would have to say Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. In the Quran it came, no. Ud'uhum, you call them by the names of their biological father. This is not their father, okay? The biological one. لِآبَائِهِمْ هُوَ أَقْسَطُ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. That's one. Another ruling is, his wife, does she become the daughter-in-law of the Prophet? No. She is not the daughter-in-law of the Prophet. So this mahramiyya issue doesn't happen. So they don't become automatically your children. So if they have siblings, if you adopt a girl and adopt a boy, can they eventually marry each other? In Islam, yes, they can marry each other. It happens often here. In here, they consider them as siblings, and then they call it, incest or whatever. It's because naturally they know that they're not siblings. Okay, this is by nature. They know they're not siblings. So in Islam, they're not siblings, and they are they're non-mahram. Therefore, they can marry each other. They have to observe hijab. The mother who adopts cannot be mahram to the boy, and the girl, same thing. So how do we deal with that? It can be managed. It's not. Obviously, at their time, it was easier because they had the seclusion of their home, and then when they come to the courtyard, the room, and then when they come to the courtyard, they consider it as the common area, so they observe hijab. So the same thing it would have to happen in the room. You would have to. You will have your freedom, and then when you come to the common area in the house, you'd have to observe hijab. You cannot consider them as your daughter or your son, and therefore they're mahram and hijab and whatever else. I hope that suffices, inshallah.
I think this will be the last question. This is a very fiqhy question. What are the rules for khums, and how do you make up past due khums when you don't have a recognition or any? You don't know how much you have actually owed in khums.
Yeah. The rule for khums is whatever from the first day you start earning, you set yourself a financial year, Islamic financial year, and you give a fifth of it to the marja or the representative, and that would take it off your shoulders. A fifth off, sorry, not all of your earning, of your savings. Okay, so if whatever you consume, you need for your day-to-day needs, you spend it, and whatever is excess of that, you pay the 1/5 or 20% of that towards khums. If you've never done it before, you would have to speak to a scholar in person, and they will do what they typically call musalaha. They'll come up with a resolution where they have an estimate based on what you have in terms of assets, which part of it is not khums is not paid off, which part of it is, and based on that they work it out for you. Inshallah. Inshallah. Thank you. Inshallah, we'll as it is the night of the burial of the martyrs of Karbala, inshallah we'll have a short musibah. Sallallahu alayka ya Rasulallah. Sallallahu alayka wa ala ahli baytika al-madlumin. Sallallahu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Sallallahu alayka ya ibn Rasulillah. Ya rahmatallahi al-wasi'a. ويا باب نجاة الأمة. غريب يا مظلوم كربلاء. سيدي يا ليتنا كنا معكم فنفوز فوزا عظيما. When they brought the family of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein to the city of Kufa, as soon as they entered the city, the news spread in Kufa, people seeing these captives. Some of them knew what's going on, others did not know, came inquiring what is happening, who are these captives. Some of them could recognize the family of Rasulullah. Zainab Salamullah alayha was a teacher of Quran in the city of Kufa. Many of the ladies in Kufa recognized Zainab. When they entered, as they left Mecca towards Karbala, they were expecting to enter with their master Abu Abdullah, with their loved ones, to be welcomed by these people. Now they enter in Kufa as captives in chains. Zainab Salamullah alayha, despite the circumstances, she gave a fiery speech to the city, to the people of Kufa. As they entered, people gathered. Eventually, when they realized who these people are, everyone was crying, everyone was in tears. Miraculously, with an ushering of Zainab, she ushered to them to be quiet. They all quietened for her to speak. She spoke, Salamullah alayha, telling the people of Kufa, woe unto you, you invited us, the family of Rasulullah. You promised to support us, to help us establish justice. You complained about the oppressors, yet when we came to you, you stood with the oppressor against the family of Rasulullah. May your tears never dry. فَلَا رَقَعَتِ الدَّمْعَ. She continued telling these people how they deceived them, how treacherous their act was. You called us for establishment of justice, and then you abandoned us for those who came and betrayed us and fought us and killed our men in Karbala. O people of Kufa, let us, mu'mineen and mu'minat, let us reflect on her words. Let us not be like these people who say, we wish we were with the Imam. Yet if the Imam of our time needs us, if we have to do something, we back down. O people of Kufa, your tongues recited the Quran, and your lips uttered praise for the Prophet of Islam, but your hearts were filled with hypocrisy and deceit. Imam Hussein described them. He said, your stomachs were filled with what is not permissible, therefore you could not hear me. You claim to be our followers, but your actions prove otherwise. O people of Kufa, she says, you have committed the greatest sins by shedding the blood of the Imam and his family. This stain, this ar will remain on you. Your hands are stained with the blood of the righteous ones, and on the day of judgment you will have to answer for your deeds. You will be facing Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. This is the sermon of Zainab. This is the situations in the city of Kufa. Yet when they were entered into the castle of Ibn Ziyad, I want you now to imagine the situation. They were once with Abu Abdullah, farewelled Abu Abdullah. The head of Abu Abdullah was brought to the cursed Ibn Ziyad. As they entered the castle, they see the cursed one had the Imam's head in a tray in front of him, disrespecting that of Abu Abdullah. One of the companions of Rasulullah complained. He said, "Oh, son of the adulteress, I have seen the Prophet kiss those lips with my own eyes." Ibn Ziyad was angered. He asked for them to bring the man and kill him. One of the revolutions happened right then and there, when the man and his tribe fought, and they were martyrs, rahmatullah alayhim. Yet Zainab salamullah alayha had to continue facing the cursed one, Ibn Ziyad. He says to her, what do you see? How do you see what God did to your family, your brother and your family? She says to him, I have not seen anything but beauty. These were people ready to face their Lord, and they went so pure to Him, and God will judge between you and them. He looked at Imam Zainul Abidin. He says, who are you? What is your name? The Imam says, Ana Ali ibn al-Husayn. The cursed one says to him, did God not kill Ali ibn al-Husayn? The Imam said, the people killed Ali ibn al-Husayn, my brother. He says to him, you dare answer me? The Imam says, Allah يتوفى الأنفس حين مماتها. He recited the ayah that eventually at the time of death Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes the soul. That does not change the cause of their death. He says, how dare you answer me? Take him and cut off his head. Zainab salamullah alayha comes and holds into Imam Zainul Abidin. She says, oh son of Marjana, have you not had enough of our blood? If you are serious and you want to kill him, you have to start with me. Salamullah alayki ya Zainab. Another scene in the land of Karbala. One of the tribes who was residing nearby, they had not participated in the battle. They came after realizing now it's safe for them to come. They came to bury the bodies of Abu Abdullah and his loved ones and his companions. They came to bury the bodies, yet they could not recognize the bodies. They could not recognize who these people were. How do they start? What do they do? Confused. knows they see a horseman coming from a distance, worried could it be someone, a spy. They realized he does not look like any one of the spies of Ibn Ziyad. He came forward. Imam Zainul Abidin reached there miraculously. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willed for the Imam to care for the martyrs of Karbala, especially for the master of martyrs, Abu Abdullah. The Imam was there showing them who was to be buried where, and he told them where to put the bodies of Bani Hashim, where to bury the bodies of the companions. And he said to them, as for this body, I will take care of it, I will have help. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had heavenly help for Imam Zainul Abidin to take care of the blessed body of Abu Abdullah. After the Imam buried the body of his father, he put a stone, he engraved on the stone, this is the grave of Hussein ibn Ali, the one who was killed thirsty. هذا قبر الحسين بن علي الذي قتل عطشان حسين غريب حسين مظلوم حسين غريب حسين لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون. نسألك اللهم وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم، إلهي بمحمد وعلي وفاطمة والحسن والحسين وبالتسعة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين. يا الله يا رحمن يا رحيم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلبي على دينك يا الله. استجب دعواتنا، شاف مرضانا، عجل فرج مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان. The last night of this majalis, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept these majalis from us, the little that we do participating in the majalis of Abu Abdullah. Ya Allah, accept us amongst the servants of Abu Abdullah. Ya Allah. Ya Allah, make whatever we earned throughout these nights of Muharram in the majalis of Abu Abdullah a cause of change in our lives, and make it something we save for our hereafter, Ya Allah. Mu'mineen and mu'minat who passed away from our gatherings, especially those from the family members of those present here, those who participated, those who prepared, the family members of those who established this majlis and the majalis of Abu Abdullah. Ya Allah, grant them abundance of your mercy, Ya Allah. Send them the reward of these majalis as well as the reward of Al-Fatiha تحفها صلوات. اللهم صل على
يا حسين صلوات. أميري حسين ونعم الأمير، سرور فؤاد البشير النذير، علي وفاطمة والداه، فهل تعلمون له من نظير؟ My master Hussein, a leader so grand, the joy of the heart, a herald to the land. Ali and Fatima, his parents of might, none can compare to him, shining so bright in the heart of my being. In the heart of my being, Hussein reigns supreme, an honorable master, a soul to esteem. My master is Hussein, a source of devotion. In his love and compassion we find our salvation. أميري حسين ونعم الأمير، سرور فؤاد البشير النذير، علي وفاطمة والداه، فهل تعلمون له من نظير؟ My master Hussein, the beacon of light, an honorable leader, a guiding knight, to the heart of the prophet he brings delight, a source of blessing, shining so bright. Ali and Fatima, his parents divine, their love and guidance forever align. From their noble lineage he did shine, a legacy of virtue forever enshrined. All together. أميري حسين ونعم الأمير، سرور فؤاد البشير النذير. Louder. علي وفاطمة والداه، فهل تعلمون له من نظير؟ In the face of injustice he stood up tall, a symbol of courage he answered the call. With unwavering faith he embraced the fall, for truth and justice he gave his all. In Karbala's sands his sacrifice told, a tale of resilience more precious than gold. He faced adversity, brave and bold. His name echoed in history, a story to be told. أميري حسين ونعم الأمير. Voices. سرور فؤاد البشير النذير، علي وفاطمة والداه، فهل تعلمون له من نظير؟ My master Hussein, the pride of the pure, his legacy of love forever endures. My master Hussein, an exemplar of love. In his remembrance we rise to go above. O Master Hussein, we look up to you. Your teachings of mercy we hold true. With every step we follow your trace, a journey of love and mercy we embrace. أميري حسين ونعم الأمير. Louder this last time. سرور فؤاد البشير النذير. علي وفاطمة والداه. فهل تعلمون له من نظير. صلوات.
Allahu Akbar. They killed Ali Asghar. I'm sorry, O Rubab. They killed Ali Asghar. Allahu Akbar. They killed Ali Asghar. I'm sorry, O Rubab. They killed Ali Asghar. Allahu Akbar. They killed Ali Asghar. I'm sorry, O Rabab, they killed Ali Asghar. This battle is vicious with enemies many. I'll after my head, for I'm the son of Ali. My existence a reminder of treachery, how their wealth is built on my mother's misery, and how they tortured the Prophet's great progeny, and how they tortured the Prophet's great progeny. They all want to end my reign and remove my name, and they want to end my reign and remove my name. God pledges is mine aim, by him my light remains. Allahu Akbar. They killed Ali Asghar. I'm sorry, O Rabab. They killed Ali Asghar. Allahu Akbar. They killed Ali Asghar. Sorry, O Rabab. They killed Ali Asghar. Along with me came my family to support. I see them as patient, all their men all fought. With fallen brothers, husbands, kin, and kids distraught. Their strength is unmatched, with patience and prayer not sure. They stand tall with fearless hearts despite arrows shot. They stand tall with fearless hearts despite arrows shot. This is my family with so much chivalry. This is my family with so much chivalry. And when my pain they do see, they all nodded Ali. Allahu Akbar. They killed Ali Asghar. I'm sorry, O Rabab. They killed Ali Asghar. Allahu Akbar. They killed Ali Asghar. I'm sorry, O Rabab. They killed Ali Asghar. Amongst the masses and clinking swords, I do hear a faint whispers of cries carrying painful tears. This voice is familiar and much less than a year. A tone of sadness echoes along with such fear. To the tents of my wife Al-Rabab I do peer. To the tents of my wife Al-Rabab I do peer. She is standing restless, young Ali is breathless. She is standing restless, Ali is breathless. With no water in sight, he is facing the light. Allahu Akbar, they killed Ali Asghar. I'm sorry, O Rabab, they killed Ali Asghar. Allahu Akbar, they killed Ali Asghar. I'm sorry, O Rabab, they killed Ali Asghar. Allahu Akbar, they killed Ali Asghar. I'm sorry, O Rabab, they killed Ali Asghar.
زيارة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا نبي الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين يا علي بن أبي طالب، السلام عليك يا خديجة الكبرى أم المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين بن علي الشهيد بكربلاء. السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين زين العابدين، السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي الباقر، السلام عليك يا جعفر بن محمد الصادق، السلام عليك يا موسى بن جعفر القادم، السلام عليك يا علي بن موسى الرضا، السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي الجواد، السلام عليك يا علي بن محمد الهادي، السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي العسكري، السلام عليك يا حجة بن الحسن يا صاحب العصر والزمان، السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن، السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، السلام عليك يا خابة الإمام يا إمام وإمام الإنس والجان. عجل على ذورك، عجل على ذورك يا ابن الحسن يا ابن الحسن، عجل على ذورك. السلام عليكم وجميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. صلوات.